Evening, everybody. This is DrHack. And you know, when I logged in today, there were just a lot more of you there than when I logged out the other day. So I think what I need to do is I just need to, do what we do here in the Midwest US. When you see somebody you just go, hey, that's it. You don't get much here. But you guys are very welcome. And of course, I love that you're checking out what we're doing here. We are in the middle of the Caro Kann, and at the end of the Caro Kann, which is about, several videos away, we will take a vote on the next opening. So don't get antsy, it's coming, guys. Okay, but for this one, we need to get back into what we talked about last time, which is the advanced variation. I don't like naming the things, but really, if they advance the pawn past, and that's what it's called, you should probably just go with it, And we put together the theory that we over-explained last time, that the bishop probably belongs out here. We're not going to over-explain that again. But what we are going to do is talk about what happens if they choose the weird path, our opponents here, the aggressive path, right? 2 words for you guys, pawn storms. Yeah, that's what we're talking about today. What happens when all the pawns start flying at you? And that can happen right here, right now, can't it? They can do a move like this. And actually, that move is very consistent with what they're trying to do here, because when you lock all these pawns together, you can see how the white pawns are pointing off this way, and that makes their piece flow just naturally go to that side of the board, so it would make perfect sense that their attack is on the wing of the board. Now, if you remember our old school strategy from the Roy Lopez, when they attack on the wing, the most potent counterattack for us is going through the middle of the board. Well, guess what? We don't have that option here. And that also makes it very consistent with their ideas, doesn't it? So this move is a pretty darn good move for white, even though it's a little bit weird, And what we need to do, first and foremost, is don't lose our stuff, because I think that's really important. So let's move this bishop out of the way. Now, I'm a big fan. I know some people like to go up here, and some people like to go back here, and some people like to go back there. They're all kind of recommended moves, guys. You can't do anything wrong if you're fixing the problem with your bishop. But my favorite one is to go this way, because I really like to keep the bishop on this diagonal, and you know why that is. We've been here, we've talked about this, right? So what happens if they just keep coming at you, And this is where we need to get just a tiny bit creative with our ideas, because we have to have the thought, I think, at some point here of, hey, if he gets through my king side, maybe my king doesn't belong over there. We have to have that thought. Now, we don't have to have that thought here. The thought we have to have here is, wah! That's the one. But then after you have that thought, directly after, we need to make sure that our bishop doesn't get trapped, because this move is coming, and when we move up here, this move is coming, and you're done. Okay, so the bishop needs a place to hide, guys. And I think that my favorite way to do this is just to move this pawn. Now, you could go 1 move or you could go 2 moves. I happen to like the 2-mover just because it gives my opponent the biggest amount of chances to make a mistake. Because if you do this one and they take it, that's not very good for them. That's actually really bad for them. And if they push past, it has the same exact problem. And that problem is this square right here. Because if you can imagine that white's attack wants to come to these 2 places, how is he going to get through his own pawns? Riddle me this, right? And the answer that you come up with is, boy, if this knight is here and maybe there, or if this knight's over here and the bishop's there and the pawn's there, I don't think he is. I think these pawns are locked up the same way that these pawns in the middle are locked up. And that is to say, no pieces are getting through there. And so they have a chance to make this mistake, And if they were to take it, the same problem happens to this square. No pawns can ever attack this place ever again, because that was the last one that could have. The other one's already moved past it. And so this guy right here becomes kind of this really nice place to put a piece. especially if you can get rid of these two bishops, for example, if they were to do something like that. And we know we want that bishop off the board because that's his premier attacker, isn't it? And so we would absolutely take that thing. And then we look at this square and we go, well, maybe we should get a knight there. And so we kind of move pawns out of the way and keep going, and our knight would come up here. Now the question that you have to keep asking is, should I castle into this mess? And the answer, the more pawns that trade off over here, the more pawns that move, the answer gets a louder and louder version of no. Okay? So we have to find a safe place for our king that is not under attack by rooks and bishops and knights and everything you can imagine coming to that side of the board. You get to be creative with your king. Now, what does being creative with our king mean? Okay. And I witnessed something as I was watching videos, on the internet a while back, where this, the world champ, Magnus Carlsen, we all know his name. He sat there in a titled event and made king moves in the first couple of moves of the game, and then played king safety drills for like 3 hours against GMs and IMs. And that cracked me up, because the guy that was commenting on it thought he was trolling them, and I'm like, no, he's practicing, dude. This isn't a troll. I don't know if anybody caught that. Maybe Magnus wasn't practicing. Maybe he was trolling, but I think it looked to me like it was a lot like practice or king safety. And what you do when you're trying to practice your king safety is you park him somewhere on the board, and you either close the lines around him with pawns and pieces, or you trade off the pieces that can get to him. Those two strategies that we know how to keep a king safe. And then you figure out where on the board he's the safest. Maybe in this one, the king is safest over here on this square. Especially with the white square bishop gone, right? Nothing's going to get him down the diagonal because that piece doesn't exist anymore. Even if the pawns were to move, right? So you can move this pawn up and it could sit right there. Nothing's going to get him there. There's no bishops coming that way. Okay. So let's get back to here. So this pawn storm is mildly, concerning. But as long as we see it coming and we see it for what it is, we can make a place for our bishop to hide, and we can actually give our opponent some chances to make mistakes, because he's kind of extending into the game pretty hard with these pawns, and he's going to leave squares behind. He's already left these two behind, and the next move will be this one being left behind. Okay, as no pawns can ever attack those again. Nice recap, huh? So what happens if they play this one? Is that as scary? It's not attacking our bishop. No workload, right? We know this. We go, hey, look, if he's not doing something that makes us have to calculate, then we're not going to calculate. Well, you got to have your danger sign go off at some point here, because if you were to play a move like, this one, he kind of gained an extra move. And watch this, he can just win the bishop right now. He moves, attacks it, and then he attacks it again, and then he attacks it again. Excuse me, and you're out of places to go. Right? So I think, when I think about this one, any pawn move on this side of the board, I consider it as a direct assault on my bishop. I just do, because I think that's what it is. So I suppose we should ask, one more question on this, and that is, at what point do we kind of relax on that idea? When do we decide that he's not going to do all this crazy stuff? And I think the answer to that is as soon as this knight develops, as soon as he does something like that, then all of a sudden we go, he's not coming after us, guys. Because this pawn can never go to here anymore without the queen's help. There's a knight in the way. So if you ever pushed it up there, we just take it. And this kind of attack with h3 and g4, that is much slower than what we were just looking at. That will take many extra moves. We'll be able to react to that one in plenty of time. So I think as soon as the knight comes out, we relax and we just kind of keep going with our development, however you choose to do that. Okay, now I really like this one, and the reason why I like it is because that way the queen can guard out here if the knight chooses to try to come and get our bishop. He can't do that anymore. We'll just kind of, free knight. Woohoo, right? So they won't do that. They'll see that coming a mile away. Okay. But what they might do is they might then say, hey, I'm not going to pawn storm on the king side of the board. I'm going to pawn storm on the queen side of the board. Here I come. I'm going to get you, right? Okay. Now this one definitely has a fundamental flaw to it. Can you spot it? You should be able to. We've talked about something like this. All right, you see this pawn? If you said he's doing his attack at the expense of his pawn structure, you would be correct, right? Because as soon as these two pawns trade, now I don't think I recommend trading him like that because that helps his bishop get in the game. But if they do trade and they were to trade, this guy doesn't have any pawns there anymore, and there's nobody to help him out. He's backwards. And because he's backwards, what really happens is the pawn right in front of him, actually, the pawn right in front of him, there's an empty square. He has an invisible friend right in front of him, guys. And the invisible friend is a good place to stick something on top of because that will make him very angry that you're stepping on his invisible friend. No, it's just a square that he can't attack anymore, you know. So this one here, and no pawns to do this. So now these two squares that I've got circled become weaker, and they are targets going forward. That's the fundamental flaw to what he's done. Okay, so how should we handle that? Well, I kind of recommend just, you know, bringing another piece in the game, because what I want to see is, and I'm not worried that this piece is not developed yet. Our knight's going to get out of the way, guys, in a minute. And then this guy will have all the space in the world. Okay. What I'm thinking is that if he does end up taking it, our knight's going to be in the correct place just to kind of get up here and be a good piece, right? And the other thing that he could do, which he probably shouldn't do, is he could push the pawn past. Now, I alluded to this one in a previous video, guys, and I think this could be extremely dangerous for us as black, because as amateurs, if that side of the board over there gets locked together and we can't do anything, then we are stuck. We got to play on this side of the board over here, and our pawns lock us out of that side of the board hard. We really can't get a lot of pieces out over there, and not in a way that makes any sense at all. Okay, so we really, when we see this, we really have to attack it hard now, right? We can't let that sit for any amount of time. So we're going to play moves like this one right away. We got to get rid of it. Let me just do it here. Let's just look. We're going to be able to attack up this file, right? Because it's open, and we're also going to be able to kind of use the A file as well if the pawns start to move there. So there's going to be ways to go after this stuff now that this pawn is missing. That's kind of good for us. So he's got to do something about that. Let's say he defends it with another pawn. Again, this starts to get, you know, a little bit dangerous. If we don't go after it right now, we may not get another opportunity, right? If we were to take it, now he can take back with this one. And now his pawn is still there. It's still defending everything, and we have kind of a hard day ahead of us, trying to dig ourselves out of this hole. Okay? But what if we were to get rid of the pawn that was supporting? We always attack the back of the pawn chain. Isn't that interesting? And now if he were to take this one, it would be fine. Because when we take this guy up here, which we probably will, or when we take this guy here, which we probably will, right? Then this guy is always going to be able to be captured. He's way too far up there for any white pawns or pieces to be able to defend him. Same thing if we were to do this one. Maybe this would trade off now, right? And now we have just kind of done it. We've gotten rid of all the pawns on that side of the board, and later on when we're ready, we can kind of push this one up the board and trade it off and do good things, right? This is how we would like the game to go. This would be great. Okay. And also you need to recognize one big tactic, right? The reason why he couldn't fix this whole thing, and the reason why we need to do these moves very early on, like now early on, is because this move now loses the game for white. This is a big oopsie now. And it's actually, you know, what I had circled here. It's the rook attacking the other rook. So when these pawns trade, if he were to take it back, we would just go get his whole rook. So that pin and that, you know, weak spot on the chessboard, if you're solving a tactic, look for the weak spots on the chessboard. The weak spot's right there, nothing defending it. And so then we find moves that go after and attack that thing. Good stuff. That's where I want to leave it for today. I feel like you guys can take on this advanced variation of the Caro Kann with confidence now. I think we've got enough where you're not going to be surprised at all. And I maybe even explained way too much. I don't know. Hope it helps somebody. And I will see you in the next one. You guys take care now. Bye.